Today, I'm chatting with James Booth, Head of Partnerships EMEA at PPRO, and we're going to learn about the fascinating world of local payment methods. It's about allowing consumers to use their favorite means of payment and allowing merchants to access markets worldwide. Welcome to the Fintech Files. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Still start with a traditional now question about the COVID and how the crisis affected you personally and professionally.
Yeah, so obviously I think the pandemic's affected everybody to a degree on a personal level as well as on a professional level. But myself personally, to be honest, I haven't been that affected so far. In my personal life as well as in my professional life, I always used to travel a lot. So I was always working on my laptop. I wasn't in the office that much. I was always moving around a bit. So to a degree, being stuck at home, working on my laptop and not being in the office comes natural to me. I think if anything, I've just become a little bit claustrophobic, working from a spare bedroom in my apartment in London. But I've adjusted quite quickly. I think the first few weeks was a bit of an adjustment for everybody, I think, at least for my whole team. But now it's almost where we're starting to adjust to the new normal, whatever the new normal is going to be in a few weeks or a few months or next year. Who knows? I think we're still adapting as the pandemic pans out.
And on the professional side, PPRO, which is dealing with local payments, there's been a lot of changes in that space. Can you tell us what's happened there in terms of business and what you learned from it?
Yes, certainly over the last few months, business has been going very well. For us, we specialize in offering local payment methods to PSPs, banks, acquirers, or any financial institution. And 90% of the local payment methods out there are mainly geared towards e-commerce transactions. So for us, it's been amazing. It's been probably one of the silver linings on the pandemic, because most payments, or as countries shut down, as a lockdown occurs, as the high street was closing down, all of the POS transactions were moved over to e-commerce transactions. So we've seen a massive spike. We've seen a massive shift in behavior, and we've seen companies really adopting a digital-first approach, which has really kind of driven companies to adopt local payment methods, which has been great for the business as a whole.
Wonderful. Just like when you have this great news, there's the news of a Wirecard, which also affected the payment system. So could you tell us a bit your perspective on that?
Yeah. So luckily we don't do business. Well, we didn't do business with Wirecard, so we weren't adversely affected by that. But I think as a whole, it's done a bit of damage to the fintech ecosystem. I think there's a little bit of trust that's been lost. Certainly when it comes from consumers, or actually mainly from the merchant side. We saw a lot of opportunities come to our clients as soon as the Wirecard fraud was exposed, and we saw lots of merchants rushing to reconnect to various payment methods. So again, we probably benefited from the Wirecard scenario. However, overall, I think it's done the industry damage. We've lost that aura of fintechs. Fintech's great. These fast-moving companies never do anything wrong. It's probably the first time we've seen something of this scale that has really damaged fintech's reputation.
And can you tell us? So PPRO is a global company, and it's spanning across all continents. So can you tell us a bit if there's any difference, or if there's striking similarities across various regions?
Firstly, yes, we are a very global business. We do business on pretty much every continent in the world. But for us, it really differs on a country by country basis. Because we offer local payment methods are unique to a certain region. So it's not like Visa or MasterCard, and they're generally accepted globally. It'll be a specific payment method for a specific country. And what we see high adoption of e-wallets in Asia Pacific. Generally, we've seen a much higher adoption from consumers in that part of the world. Whereas in Europe, you're talking about bank transfers, you're talking about direct debit type products. Latin America, you're talking about cash-based payments. Mainly cards, but a lot of cash-based payments. Africa, mobile payments, LPMs such as M-Pesa are very popular. So really it varies on the region, but mainly it varies on a country-by-country basis.
All right, and we're going to go into what PPRO does in details and the landscape of local payments. But a few questions about you and your career first. What made you choose finance and now fintech?
So I think straight out of university, I was always interested in finance. I was always interested in investing. I knew it was a good career path. So I got into banking initially, but then found that actually working for a bank was extremely boring, extremely slow paced, at least for what I wanted. I wanted to really be part of something new. So that's where I branched away from banking and moved more into fintech, which I found was more in tune with what I wanted. So it has the fin part, the finance part of it, because I think everybody needs a good financial standing. Everybody needs access to funds. Everybody needs access to bank accounts, which is a staple to our everyday life. That's always going to grow. But I think the main driver moving forward is the tech element of fintech, and I think that's where all excitement happens. So I left banking, got involved in a mobile payment startup, a company called Pay11, which was acquired by Summer, but left that business about 4 years ago, and I've been helping grow PPRO since then.
Wonderful. So let's get to PPRO, and so what does the company do?
So at PPRO, we're effectively an acquirer of local payment methods. So when I talk about local payment methods, I mean everything that's not a traditional credit card or debit card, for example. So not Visa, not MasterCard, American Express, Discover, etc. I'm talking about local alternative payment methods. So in China, I'm talking about Alipay or WeChat Pay. In Europe, I'm talking about Ideal in the Netherlands, which is a bank transfer scheme. I'm talking about GiroPay in Germany, which is, again, it's a bank transfer scheme. Klarna, which is very popular throughout Europe, which is an invoice-based payment scheme. In Latin America or Brazil, there's Boleto Bancário, which is a cash-based payment scheme. I can go on and on and on. There's hundreds of these payment methods that vary by region that consumers want access to. Now, for a PSP or a bank to offer their clients access to hundreds of local payment methods is very difficult. And that's where PPRO comes in. So we don't work with merchants. We don't work with consumers directly. We're effectively an infrastructure provider for payment service providers or banks. And we give them aggregated access to over 150 local payment methods around the world.
Understood. So can you tell us a bit more about who would be your typical clients?
The best way I like to explain it is pretend you're a small t-shirt shop. You've just started a shop out of your garage or your apartment. You're selling t-shirts. Now you want to start selling them online. So in order to do that, you're going to go to a website builder. You're going to build a nice t-shirt shop, and you're going to connect that website to a payment service provider. Now that payment service provider will give you access to Visa, MasterCard, a variety of payment methods, as well as local payment methods. Now that PSP, that's our customer, because as a PSP serving merchants, let's take, for example, a UK PSP. If you're a UK merchant, you're most likely going to connect to a UK payment service provider. They'll give you access to Visa, MasterCard, American Express, PayPal. And with those methods, you're going to cover the majority of the consumers in the UK. Now, let's say you want to start selling your t-shirts to Dutch consumers, to German consumers, to Chinese consumers. It's very easy to ship your t-shirts via UPS or Royal Mail, whatever. Now that PSP that's giving you access to Visa and MasterCard, they're also going to have to give you access to Ideal and GiroPay and Klarna and Alipay and WeChat Pay and Poly in Australia and Boleto Bancário in Brazil, etc. And it's very difficult for them to integrate all of these payment methods, to collect all of the funds from China, Australia, Brazil, Italy, Portugal, etc. So instead of them going out and performing individual integrations, they come to PPRO and they perform one integration into us, and we provide them with access to all the payment methods. So in a way, we're we're a mega payment method that's white labeled. So we're selling 180 payment methods, but through one technical platform.
All right. So if I put myself in the mind of
Yeah.
the end client or the seller, the t-shirt shop,
Yes.
what you change for me is that I can now, without probably thinking about it, but I can accept payments or I can facilitate payments from all over the world, and my customer don't have to think about. Well, they use their favorite methods of payment, right?
Exactly. I mean, when it comes down to it, we're effectively connecting merchants with consumers around the world, and that's at its most basic level. That's what we're doing. We're allowing you as a merchant in the UK to sell your t-shirts to Chinese consumers, Australian consumers, German consumers, Italian consumers, using that local consumer's preferred payment method.
All right, I see. And if we go one scale up, so to the payment system, you allow them, you allow them to offer a better service to their client, right?
Exactly. We allow them to offer a better service to their merchant base, as well as a quicker route to market. Because as a payment service provider, there's a variety of products that you'll have to offer their merchant base. You'll provide them access to payment methods, and we're one part of that. So you can give them access to 100 of payment methods. They'll also have to provide you with risk tools. They'll provide you with maybe website plugins. I mean, a lot of PSPs these days are offering cash advances. You go to, especially SME-based PSPs, they're offering cash advances. They're offering, a lot of security tools, etc. And there's a whole host of services that we provide, and we just help them with the payments part of it. We help them provide the most coverage to their merchant base.
Sure. Because otherwise they could do it one by one and go.
Exactly. They would have to do it one by one. It would take them years to do it. It would take all of their engineering resources, and it effectively allows them to concentrate on providing the merchant with the best possible experience without have to worry about all of the back-end payment systems and dealing with APIs that are in different languages and having to open bank accounts in tens or hundreds of countries, etc.
Sure. Now that's been enlightening for me. I wasn't aware of this industry, and it seems like a no-brainer. I don't know how many players are in that field, but it seems like, why wouldn't I take payments from anywhere else? So I suppose there are a few challenges though. So would you tell us a bit about the main marketing challenges that you face?
Yes. I mean, I think the very nature of our business makes marketing very difficult, because if we're successful in our product, and if we're successful in deploying it, we're invisible. I mean, one of the main benefits of working with PPRO is we're completely white labeled. Mm-hmm. So as a merchant, you're going to go out there and you're going to purchase payments from your PSP, and they'll give you a really nice fact sheet with all of the various payment methods. And if you go to their website, you'll see that they're advertising that they're offering Visa, MasterCard, Alipay, Ideal, etc. Where it's actually us offering the service behind them as a white label provider. So for us to market ourselves, it's very difficult, because ultimately we're selling a different business's product. We're selling the LPMs that we offer. So we always have a bit of a fight internally around how far we want to push the PPRO brand versus how far we want to push the actual local payment method brand that the consumer ultimately identifies with. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is going to identify with the payment method in their country and the payment method that they use. They're not going to identify with the financial services provider that's part of a transactional chain that just provides one link of the chain. That's, to be honest, they don't really care about. When you buy something online, there may be 4 or 5 different financial institutions facilitating that payment. You don't care that people is helping you. You just want to make sure that the merchant gets your money and you get the goods. So we're this invisible middle layer that makes it very difficult to market ourselves, and very difficult for PSPs to find out about us, because we offer our payment methods to the majority of the PSPs in Europe. I think 8 of the top 10 acquirers or banking acquirers in the US. But we don't name any of them. We're not allowed to name any of them because we're under NDA, and they themselves don't want to admit that they're maybe using a third-party provider to give them coverage. that makes it a little different from a marketing perspective, which is why our strategy has always been to it's been to educate the entire market. We're not just going out there and educating our partners. We want to educate every PSP out there about local payment methods, and then through business development and partnerships, we're capturing as many partnership channels as we possibly can, and we hope that business will filter up to us.
So you mentioned about educating the market. Can you tell us a bit more about that in details? What kind of events or education events you're taking?
Exactly. So I think when it comes to educating the market, as I mentioned, we try to educate everybody in the market, and we want to be an ambassador for local payment methods because we do think that they're the best option for consumers, and that's clearly being shown in the adoption rates that we're seeing out there. So when it comes to marketing, firstly, we provide an annual what we call the PPRO Almanac, and it's almost a dictionary of every single local payment method out there that we've categorized and broken down, and we've given specific statistics around the payment method, as well as data on every single country in the world. So we break down and we do a lot of research on a country by country basis, and we distribute this online. We give our partners obviously priority access, but over time we make this data available to everyone. Outside of our research, we partake in a lot of trade shows, or we used to take part in a lot of trade shows. Now we'll see if they're still going to be around. And obviously we get involved in podcasts such as this one that we're on, which is great for all the listeners out there. And we also just do a lot of marketing through our partner channels. So again, you won't see a lot of the direct PPRO marketing that we do, but we provide a lot of collateral for our clients to market the payment methods that we offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't have any reference example in mind, but I do understand the challenge that you have, and you cannot easily write, I don't know, power and put a viral loop like powered by PPRO or I don't know everything, because there's Visa, there's the payment system, and there's a few layers, right? So
there's a lot of them. That's for sure.
So it doesn't work. Now very interesting about what you mentioned, like research-driven education, and to dig a bit further into that. What are the channels that you're using exploring? Podcast obviously is one. Otherwise, how do you distribute your research or other thought leadership pieces?
Yeah, so we do obviously just general PR. We write a lot of articles. We don't do that much direct advertising. We try to take a thought leadership approach. So we feel within the business, there's a lot of my colleagues have tremendous experience within this landscape. So we're writing a lot of white papers, we're writing a lot of articles, we're getting involved in a lot of panel discussions online at the moment. We're doing webinars. So every few weeks or so, we launch a webinar for our partners, or sometimes they're public webinars. Just it was a few weeks ago, I did a webinar with a Berlin-based show at MPE. I did one that was public, and we're also doing a lot of internal webinars for our clients.
Great, yeah, the whole customer journey, right? It's not just about acquiring new ones; it's about keeping them.
It's about keeping all the current customers happy, as well as constantly educating our current customers about movements within the payments landscape. Because when it comes to local payment methods, the change is extremely fast. We're seeing new payment methods pop up in countries every week, every month or so. Obviously, not all of them survive, not all of them grow to the size of a GiroPay or a Klarna, for example. But we have to constantly educate our partners to ensure that they're always providing the right mix of payment methods for their clients.
All right, so that's where as well, so you're head of partnership, that's where the partnership makes its whole sense, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us a bit more about how you go about building this partnership, and maybe more about the things that you do hand in hand with the payment system providers that are your partners?
Yeah, so as head of partnerships for the EMEA region for PPRO, my main remit is to on the one side win new partnerships for the business. So I've got a new business sales team that's going out there, and they're trying to find all of the latest payment service providers that need access to local payment methods. And we're doing that via trade shows, via just personal networks, just generally, and actually a lot of it is by word of mouth. We've been very lucky in that we've had a lot of success through word of mouth. And then on the other side, I also I look after the account management team as a whole for the EMEA region. So there we're doing a lot of upselling of payment methods to our clients, as well as constant education. We're doing a lot of webinars. We're doing a lot of consulting with our clients to ensure that they always have an optimal service. So I work mainly on the client side of the partnerships of the business, whereas I have colleagues on the other side of the business. They say they're called payment networks. They do our payment partnerships. They're out there constantly sourcing the newest and greatest payment methods, as well as looking after all of our current payment method relationships. So we've got there's two sides to the PPRO engine from a partnerships perspective.
Right. And so just before we finish, can I ask as well about the UK in particular, just to try to put something very clear in my mind in terms of the local payment methods. So would you describe us a bit the UK scene?
Yeah, so UK I wouldn't describe as a local payment method.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's a few markets out there. The UK being one, the US being one, probably Australia, South Africa to a degree, that are very card dominated. So the majority of the transactions in the UK are through Visa, MasterCard, American Express. So if you, and this is why the education piece is very important, because if you say to a UK merchant, oh, you have to accept Ideal and GiroPay and all of these different payment methods, they'll say, why? Everybody's got a Visa or MasterCard in their pocket. But when you give them the research and you say, actually, if you look at let's look at the Dutch markets. In the Netherlands, I think it's around, can't remember the exact number off the top of my head, but it's over 65% of all e-commerce transactions are done through a payment method called Ideal, not Visa, MasterCard. So they're actually the minority in the country. If you're selling to Chinese consumers, obviously they don't have a Visa or MasterCard. There it's 80-90% of the transactions are through Alipay or WeChat Pay. So if you offer the same mix of payment methods that you offer a UK consumer versus a Dutch or a Chinese consumer, you're going to get a very different conversion on those transactions, and you're not going to capture the market. So we actually don't do much business in the UK. There's one payment method in the UK that we launched several months ago that's beginning to get traction. It's called Pay by Banker. It's available through the HSBC app as well as Ping It, and hopefully it will be available through a few other banking apps. But I'd say that's the first local payment method you'll see in the UK. But it's growing month over month, but it's nowhere near the size of Visa or MasterCard. So as a merchant in the UK, you still have to stick with Visa or MasterCard.
Sure. But then, it's really, then if you open up to more payment methods, if you, and suddenly, and I know a lot of small retailers who sell online and sell more to China or Korea than to the UK. So therefore, there's a real, being first of all aware of it. Wonder like why the client is asking me to pay via X, Alipay.
Exactly, yeah. And we've seen through some of our research, we've seen that when merchants are doing cross-border commerce, depending on the country where they're shipping to and depending on the goods, we're seeing an increase in sales in those countries. Some cases 10%, some 20, some 30, some 40%. You're seeing an increase in sales by offering the local relevant payment method. So it really does make a huge difference if you get that mixture right. So if I leave the listeners with anything today, and if there's any merchants out there, is just look at where you're doing cross-border commerce. Look at, if you're only offering credit cards, you can figure out where these transactions are coming from. And if there's a local payment method that has high relevance in that market, think about activating it. Think about speaking to your PSP and saying, okay, I'm doing a lot of, for some reason, I'm getting a lot of buyers in Portugal. In Portugal, you should be using Multibanco or MBWay. activate those payment methods, yeah, you're most likely going to see an increase in sales.
Yeah, that's such a fascinating perspective, again, because I'm in the UK and I'm not, my mind was not wide open to all this, but I can see so many applications. So that's really something great to keep in mind. And yeah, for the end user, for the merchant as well, not just for the payment system provider. So I guess that depicts as well, in my mind, I've tried to imagine what the future landscape of payments would look like. And it looks like it's something that's absolutely cross-border and but yeah, I mean, I've just been imagining, but tell us a bit more about what you see in the coming years. So, how's this developing?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as the market matures, I mean, I personally see the market fragmenting even more. There's several hundred payment methods now, and in a few years' time, you know, we're going to see something like double or triple that, because consumer experiences are going to have to really be streamlined to the individual consumer. If you think about shopping habits, you know, during the pandemic, we've gone away from purchasing things in store to purchasing things online. Now, the thought of always having to type in a card number to process a transaction is if you think about it logically, it's not the best way to transact online. You know, it'd be easier to type in a username or a password, or if you've got your mobile phone, you just scan your face and pay. So a lot of these new payment methods are utilizing that technology or that type of authentication technology, and they're applying that to payments. And they're also applying lots of different user experiences locally. So we're seeing, especially in Southeast Asia, we're seeing super apps come about. So you look at WeChat Pay. Within WeChat Pay, you have payments, you have chat, you've got a ride-hailing app, you've got food delivery, you've got everything. You've got all of these within an app. And we're starting to see different versions of these pop up around the world. In Singapore, there's also GrabPay. It's the same thing. So I think in Europe, in the US, we're going to see different payment experiences pop up that'll be tailored to different consumers. It's not going to be a one size fits all. It's going to be, okay, me, James, I prefer to pay using this method and it scans my face. You know, I don't know how you would prefer to pay, but yeah, let's say George, you prefer to pay using an e-wallet, and you prefer a username and password, and you want more security or something like that. You know, so you might use a different method of payment. But we might both sit in London, and we might both be just around the corner from each other, and we might have several different options to pay.
We'll surely not be using a lot less cash. At least that's my prediction.
I don't think we'll be using a lot of cash going forward. I mean, me personally, I haven't used cash in years. Besides when I travel. When I travel, yes, there's some countries where you need it, but in the UK, it's at the moment it's Apple Pay and contactless.
Even to my kids, I decided I don't give it coins anymore. We'll just count it and do it digitally, or at least in my mind. So now, joke aside, this is really a fascinating perspective, and it shows as well how you know, different elements of fintech come together. You mentioned the super apps, which we've said, you know, one day, or they're coming at some point. You know,
they're coming, yeah.
And then digital ID verification. So when maybe the progress of, say, you mentioned scanning your face, when it will become something natural, and there's a lot of development there, then it will also change our behaviors, change our the way we like to pay, and therefore open up a lot of things. So you're such a payments, I realize now, are so excited because there's so much happening in that
exactly
space, right?
There's a lot of like payments is something that everybody does instinctively. You know, we don't. It's one of these industries where it has so many different touch points in people's lives, but it's extremely complicated because it's a very personalized thing. I mean, it's going to become more personalized, especially in countries like the UK, where it's still running on old legacy payment methods. You know, the traditional card rails are going to have to be upgraded. They're going to have to change. Otherwise, there are going to be different payment methods that are going to come into the market and steal their market share, because they'll be offering better user experiences, just more technology. It'll provide just an easier way of life for consumers. And why wouldn't a consumer want that? I mean, we're already seeing that to a degree in the banking space. We're seeing a lot of these neobanks pop up because they're offering a better consumer experience. They're just offering better apps, which is, it should be an easy thing for the banks to do, but it's taking them time. And that's now, I feel, it's going to happen in the payment space. Because why should you walk around with a piece of plastic in your back pocket when you've got a very powerful phone in your hand that can do a lot more than just contactless? It can do QR code payments. It can do NFC payments. It can do a lot.
Really fascinating. Last question, James. Is there one thing that you're most excited about in your industry, a development that you see booming?
I think it's kind of, I mean, I sound like I'm repeating myself because it's pretty much just what I spoke about there. I see this industry that I'm working at the moment becoming extremely pivotal to consumer experiences moving forward. I see payments are going to be ingrained in our everyday life. They're going to be seamless in a lot of apps. There's been a buzzword at a lot of the trade shows over the past year or two, and that's fintech as a service. I think we're starting to see I don't know if it's a word, but the platform, we're starting to see the fintech ecosystem become a platform as a whole for non-finance businesses to just jump on top of the bandwagon and build products on top of fintech. I think fintech will become a platform or a service layer to commerce as a whole and to merchants as a whole. And I think that's what's exciting, because that's when we're going to see really different user experiences. We're going to see new use cases. We're going to see easier access to products or financial services for consumers, and it's going to be very seamless. It's going to be very seamless to the consumer. Behind the scenes, I think it's going to get more and more and more complicated and more difficult to manage. But that's why I think the fintech system is going to continue growing and continue achieving new heights.
Yeah, no, that's very exciting as a consumer to think about that. Indeed, that you don't care about what's running behind it in terms of technology, but I think there's all this integrated, maybe in your phone, maybe that's something we discussed as well with Alokik and one of my previous guests about kind of unifying fintech. So it's
exactly
the growl.
Yeah, and that's the platform approach that we're starting to see. Everything's going to be connected. Going to be a lot of interconnectivity, and it's really exciting.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, James. This has been really, really interesting, really mind-opening for me as we're new to the space, and I realize all the possibilities. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. Just a few lighthearted questions to finish, quick and easy. What would you do if you were to choose a different career path?
I think
you started right.
Yeah.
But hey.
Yeah, no worries. I think if I did anything else, or if I had the option to do anything else, I mean, firstly, I'm passionate about fintech. It really is my number one career, and I'm glad I've landed into it. But if I did want to do anything else, it would either be something creative, be it an artist or an architect or something like that. I do a lot of drawing in my spare time, or it would be conservation. I'm from South Africa. I love the wildlife, and yeah, I want to be a conservationist. I don't know, for those watching in the video, I've got some photos that I've taken from the bush up on the wall.
we see half of it, but anyway,
yeah.
You can imagine. Wonderful. What's the talent or passion that our listeners may not be, or your colleagues may not know about?
Yeah, I'd probably
might have answered it. You might have answered.
I might have answered with my art. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do a lot of drawing in my spare time, so that's something my colleagues probably don't know about me.
All right, wonderful. We'll put a link to your Instagram profile where I think we can see the drawings. And
Perfect,
finally, your favorite place for holidays as we are coming out of the lockdown?
Well, actually, my favorite place for holidays, funny enough, would be going back home to South Africa and going on safari.
All makes perfect sense. Wonderful.
Yeah, you can see it's all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. Yes. Maybe there's some drawings of the animals and so on. Wonderful, James. That was really great. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts and insights.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great discussion. Thank you.